Hey guys, alright, so like and subscribe. I'm going to try to finish chapter 2 of the interior castle or the mansions of St. Teresa of Ávila, something like that, before my daughter interrupts. So, here we go. Before going farther, I wish you to consider the state to which mortal sin brings this magnificent and beautiful castle, this pearl of the East, this tree of life. Planted beside the living waters of life which symbolize God Himself, no night can be so dark, no gloom nor blackness can compare to its obscurity. Suffice it to say that the sun in the center of the soul, which gave it such splendor and beauty, is totally eclipsed. Though the spirit is as fitted to enjoy God's presence as is the crystal to reflect the sun. While the soul is in mortal sin, nothing can profit it. None of its good works merit an eternal reward, since they do not proceed from God as their first principle, and by Him alone is our virtue real virtue. The soul separated from Him is no longer pleasing in His eyes, because by committing a mortal sin, instead of seeking to please God, it prefers to gratify the devil, the prince of darkness, and so comes to share his blackness. I knew a person to whom our Lord revealed the result of a mortal sin, and who said she thought no one who realized its effects could ever commit it, but would suffer unimaginable torments to avoid it. This vision made her very desirous for all to realize this truth. Therefore, I beg you, my daughters, to pray fervently to God for sinners who live in blindness and do deeds of darkness. In a state of grace, the soul is like a well of limpid water, from which flow only streams of clearest crystal. Its works are pleasing both to God and man, rising from the river of life, beside which it is rooted like a tree. Otherwise, it would produce neither leaves nor fruit. For the waters of grace nourish it, keep it from withering from drought, and cause it to bring forth good fruit. But the soul, by sinning, withdraws from this stream of life, and growing beside a black and fetid pool, can produce nothing but disgusting and unwholesome fruit. Notice that it is not the fountain and the brilliant sun which lose their splendor and beauty, for they are placed in the very center of the soul and cannot be deprived of their luster. The soul is like a crystal in the sunshine, over which a thick black cloth has been thrown, so that however brightly the sun may shine, the crystal can never reflect it. O souls redeemed by the blood of Jesus Christ, take these things to heart. Have mercy on yourselves. If you realize your pitiable condition, how can you refrain from trying to remove the darkness from the crystal of your souls? Remember, if death should take you now, you would never again enjoy the light of this sun. O Jesus, how sad a sight must be a soul deprived of light. What a terrible state the chambers of this castle are in. How disorderly must be the senses, the inhabitants of the castle, the powers of the soul, its magistrates, governors, and stewards, blind and uncontrolled as they are. In short, as the soil in which the tree is now planted is in the devil's domain, how can its fruit be anything but evil? A man of great spiritual insight once told me he was not so much surprised at such a soul's wicked deeds as astonished that it did not commit even worse sins. May God in His mercy keep us from such great evil, for nothing in this life merits the name of evil in comparison with this, which delivers us over to evil which is eternal. This is what we must dread and pray God to deliver us from, for we are weakness itself, and unless He guards the city, in vain shall we labor to defend it. The person of whom I speak said she had learnt two things from the vision granted her. The first was a great fear of offending God. Seeing how terrible were the consequences, she constantly begged Him to preserve her from falling into sin. Secondly, it was a mirror to teach her humility, for she saw that nothing good in us springs from ourselves, but comes from the waters of grace, near which the soul remains like a tree planted beside a river, and from that sun which gives life to our works. She realized this so vividly that on seeing any good deed performed by herself or by other people, she at once turned to God as to its fountainhead, without whose help she well knew we can do nothing, and broke out into songs of praise to him. Generally, she forgot all about herself and only thought of God when she did any meritorious action. The time which has been spent in reading or writing on this subject will not have been lost if it has taught us these truths. For though learned, clever men know them perfectly. Women's wits are dull and need help in every way. Perhaps this is why our Lord has suggested these comparisons to me. May he give us grace to profit by them. So obscure are these spiritual matters that to explain them an ignorant person like myself must say much that is superfluous, I don't know, and even alien to the subject before coming to the point. My readers must be patient with me, as I am with myself while writing what I do not understand. Indeed, I often take up the paper like a dunce, not knowing what to say nor how to begin. Doubtless there is need for me to do my best to explain these spiritual subjects to you, for we often hear how beneficial prayer is for our souls. Our constitutions oblige us to pray so many hours a day, yet tell us nothing of what part we ourselves can take in it, and very little the work of God does in the soul by its means. It will be helpful in setting it before you in various ways to consider this heavenly edifice within us, so little understood by men, near as they often come to it. Our Lord gave me grace to understand something of such matters when I wrote on them before, yet I think I have more light now, especially on the more difficult questions. Unfortunately, I am too ignorant to treat of such subjects without saying much that is already well known. Let us turn at least to our castle with its many mansions. You must not think of a suite of rooms placed in succession, but fix your eyes on the keep, the court inhabited by the king, like the kernel of the palmito, from which several rinds must be removed before coming to the eatable part. This principal chamber is surrounded by many others. However large, magnificent, and spacious you imagine this castle to be, you cannot exaggerate it. The capacity of the soul is beyond all our understanding, and the sun within this palace enlightens every part of it. A soul which gives itself to prayer, either much or little, should on no account be kept within narrow bounds, since God has given it such dignity, such great dignity. Permit it to wander at will through the rooms of the castle, from the lowest to the highest. Let it not force itself to remain for very long in the same mansion, even that of self-knowledge. Mark well, however, that self-knowledge is indispensable, even for those whom God takes to dwell in the same mansion with himself. Nothing else, however elevated, perfects the soul, which must never seek to forget its own nothingness. Let humility be always at work, like the bee at the honeycomb, or all will be lost. But remember, the bee leaves its hive to fly in search of flowers, and the soul should sometimes cease thinking of itself to rise in meditation on the grandeur and majesty of its God. It will learn its own baseness better thus than by self-contemplation, and will be freer from the reptiles which enter the first room where self-knowledge is acquired. Although it is a great grace from God to practice self-examination, yet too much is as bad as too little, as they say. Believe me, by God's help we shall advance more by contemplating the divinity than by keeping our eyes fixed on ourselves, poor creatures of earth that we are. I do not know whether I have put this clearly. Self-knowledge is of such consequence that I would not have you careless of it, though you may be lifted to heaven in prayer, because while on earth nothing is more needful than humility. Therefore, I repeat, not only a good way, but the best of all ways is to endeavor to enter first by the room where humility is practiced, which is far better than at once rushing on to the others. This is the right road. If we know how easy and safe it is to walk by it, why ask for wings with which to fly? Let us rather try to learn how to advance quickly. I believe we shall never learn to know ourselves except by endeavoring to know God. For, beholding his greatness, we are struck by our own baseness. His purity shows our foulness, and by meditating on his humility, we find how very far we are from being humble. 2 advantages are gained by this practice. First, it is clear that white looks far whiter when placed near something black, and on the contrary, black never looks so dark as when seen beside something white. Secondly, our understanding and will become more noble and capable of good in every way when we turn from ourselves to God. It is very injurious never to raise our minds above the mire of our own faults. I described how murky and fetid are the streams that spring from the source of a soul in mortal sin. Thus, although the case is not really the same, God forbid, this is only a comparison, while we are continually absorbed in contemplating the weakness of our earthly nature, the springs of our actions will never flow free from the mire of timid, weak, and cowardly thoughts such as, I wonder whether people are noticing me or not. If I follow this course, will harm come to me? Dare I begin this work? Would it not be presumptuous? Is it right for anyone as faulty as myself to speak on sublime spiritual subjects? Will not people think too well of me if I make myself singular? Extremes are bad even in virtue. Sinful as I am, I shall only fall the lower. Perhaps I shall fail and be a source of scandal to good people. Such a person as I am has no need of peculiarities. Alas, my daughters, what loss the devil must have caused to many a soul by such thoughts as these. It thinks such ideas and many others of the same sort I could mention arise from humility. This comes from not understanding our own nature. Self-knowledge becomes so warped that unless we take our thoughts off ourselves, I am not surprised that these and many worse fears should threaten us. Therefore, I maintain, my daughters, that we should fix our eyes on Christ, our only good, and on his saints. There we shall learn true humility, and our minds will be ennobled, so that self-knowledge will not make us base and cowardly. Although only the first, this mansion contains great riches and such treasures that if the soul only manages to elude the reptiles dwelling here, it cannot fail to advance further. Terrible are the wiles and stratagems the devil uses to hinder people from realizing their weakness and detecting his snares. From personal experience, I could give you much information as to what happens in these first mansions. I will only say that you must not imagine there are only a few, but a number of rooms, for souls enter them by many different ways, and always with a good intention. The devil is so angry at this that he keeps legions of evil spirits hidden in each room to stop the progress of Christians, whom, being ignorant of this, he entraps in 1,000 ways. He cannot so easily deceive souls which dwell near to the King as he can beginners still absorbed in the world, immersed in its pleasures, and eager for its honors and distinctions. As the vessels of their soul, the senses and powers bestowed on them by God are weak. Such people are easily vanquished, although desirous not to offend God. Those conscious of being in this state must as often as possible have recourse to His Majesty, taking His blessed Mother and the saints for their advocates to do battle for them, because we creatures possess little strength for self-defense. Indeed, in every state of life, all our help must come from God. May He in His mercy grant it us. Amen. What a miserable life we lead. And I have spoken more fully in other writings. On the ill that results from ignoring the need of humility and self-knowledge, I will treat no more about it here. My daughters, although it is of the first importance, God grant what I have said may be useful to you. You must notice that the light which comes from the king's palace hardly shines at all in these first mansions. Although not as gloomy and black as the soul in mortal sin, yet they are in semi-darkness, and their inhabitants see scarcely anything. I cannot explain myself. I do not mean that this is the fault of the mansions themselves, but that the number of snakes, vipers, and venomous reptiles from outside the castle prevent souls entering them from seeing the light. They resemble a person entering a chamber full of brilliant sunshine, with eyes clogged and half closed with dust. Though the room itself is light, he cannot see because of his self-imposed impediment. In the same way, these fierce and wild beasts blind the eyes of the beginner, so that he sees nothing but them. Such, it appears to me, is the soul which, though not in a state of mortal sin, is so worldly and preoccupied with earthly riches, honors, and affairs, that, as I said, even if it sincerely wishes to enter into itself and enjoy the beauties of the castle, it is prevented by these distractions and seems unable to overcome so many obstacles. It is most important to withdraw from all unnecessary cares and businesses, as far as compatible with the duties of one's state of life, in order to enter the second mansion. This is so essential that unless done immediately, I think it's impossible for anyone to reach the principal room, or even to remain where he is without great risk of losing what is already gained. Otherwise, although he is inside the castle, he will find it impossible to avoid being bitten some time or other by some of the very venomous creatures surrounding him. What then would become of a religious like ourselves, my daughters, if after having escaped from all these impediments and having entered much further into the more secret mansions, she should by her own fault return to all this turmoil? Through her sins, many other people on whom God has bestowed great graces would culpably relapse into their own wretched state. In our covenants we are free from these exterior evils. Please God, our minds may be as free from them, and He may deliver us from such ills. Do not trouble yourselves, my daughter, with cares which do not concern you. You must notice that the struggle with the demons continues through nearly all the mansions of this castle. True, in some of them the guards, which I explained are the powers of the soul, have strength for the combat, but we must be keenly on the watch against the devil's arts, lest he deceive us in the form of an angel of light. He creeps in gradually in numberless ways and does us much harm, though we do not discover it until too late. As I said elsewhere, he works like a file, secretly and silently wearing its way. I will give you some examples to show how he begins his wiles. For instance, a nun has such a longing for penance as to feel no peace unless she is tormenting herself in some way. This is good in itself, but suppose that the prioress has forbidden her to practice any mortifications without special leave, and the sister, thinking that in such a meritorious cause she may venture to disobey, secretly leads such a life that she loses her health and cannot even fulfill the requirements of her rule. You see how this show of good ends. Another nun is very zealous about religious perfection. This is very right, but may cause her to think even every small fault she sees in her sisters a serious crime, and to watch constantly whether they do anything wrong, that she may run into the prioress. She may run to the prioress to accuse them of it. At the same time, maybe she never notices her own shortcomings because of her great zeal about other people's religious observance, while perhaps her sisters, not seeing her intention, but only knowing of the watch she keeps on them, do not take her behavior in good part. The devil's chief aim here is to cool the charity and lessen the mutual affection of the nuns, which would injure them seriously. Be sure, my daughters, that the true perfection consists in the love of God and our neighbor. And the better we keep both of these commandments, the more perfect shall we be. The sole object of our rule and constitutions is to help us to observe these two laws. Indiscreet zeal about others must not be indulged in. It may do us harm. Let each one look to herself. However, as I have spoken fully on this subject elsewhere, I will not enlarge on it here, and will only beg you to remember the necessity of this mutual affection. Our souls may lose their peace and even disturb other people's if we are always criticizing trivial actions which often are not real defects at all, but we construe them wrongly through ignorance of their motives. See how much it costs to attain perfection. Sometimes the devil tempts nuns in this way about the prioress, which is still even more dangerous. Great prudence is then required, for if she disobeys the rule or constitutions, the matter must not always be overlooked, but should be mentioned to her. If after this she does not amend, the superior of the order should be informed of it. It is true charity to speak in this case, as it would be if we saw our sisters commit a grave fault. To keep silence for fear that speech would be a temptation against charity, would be that very temptation itself. However, I must warn you seriously not to talk to each other about such things, lest the devil deceive you. He would gain greatly by your doing so, because it would lead to the habit of detraction. Rather, as I said, state the matter to those whose duty it is to remedy it. Thank God, our custom here of keeping almost perpetual silence gives little opportunity for such conversation. Still, it is well to stand ever on our guard. Okay. That is, I believe, the end of this chapter. The next one is called The Second Mansion's Only Chapter, but we'll get to that one at a different time. Alright, I apologize if this is like jumpy. My daughter keeps coming in. So, yeah, this chapter talks to me about needing to be humble and humility, and also about cutting as much out of your life as possible in order to focus on what's true and what's real. And also, this last part was like talking about other people, you know, like instead of talking about other people, you should just talk to them about it. You know, if you're having a problem, which I find really hard, honestly. I find it really hard because I just want to like keep the peace. I want to make everybody happy. And I think one of my like true lessons of this life has been to, when I'm experiencing an issue, to say it to the person that I'm experiencing it with, and not, you know, call somebody and bitch to them about it, but like in the moment be like, hey, like this is not okay, I'm having a problem here. And I think that the universe or God, you know, whatever your higher power, whatever you believe in to be true, puts things into your life on a consistent basis until you learn the lessons that you have to learn. And one of my lessons has been being very blessed to have things in my life that I feel compelled to share, and then when I share them, I get taken advantage of, and it's like I compulsively want to share them, but I compulsively am taken advantage of. And so I've had to learn to speak up for myself, which has been a very hard lesson for me. And finally, like just recently, I feel like I've actually learned the lesson, and it's like in the moment, I'm like, hey, you know, if we're gonna continue to share this, like, I need support from you. I need, for instance, it's like, I have this house. If you're gonna move into this house, I need your help with the house. Like, I need some kind of contribution from you. And I feel compelled to house people who can't necessarily afford, to pay rent or to give in a way like that. But it's like, okay, but that also doesn't mean you can sit around and do nothing and take advantage, really, of my kindness. And that has been a theme in my life. And finally, I've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, like, if you're gonna be here, like, things need to be straightened up every day. Things need to be cleaned. If laundry's sitting, it needs to be done. I have no problem providing, but I need help, because everything is energy. And me giving my time on this video is me spending energy, and everybody that watches this video takes a part of my energy, which I give freely, but in order to really gain something from what I'm teaching or what I'm talking about or what I'm trying to explain, you must reciprocate that energy. So, it's like, I can move you in here and I can provide everything for you, but in order to gain anything from it, in order to move forward in life and think like, wow, that was so beneficial for me, there has to be an equal energy exchange. And and that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand about karma. It's like, it's not like, oh, I let you move in here, so when you get a place, I move in there, and that's equal, that's fulfilling the karmic debt. No. It's energy. It's equal energy exchange. So whatever is equal to the energy of me providing for you a place to live and a home for you and whoever you come along with, then the equal energy exchange is, when you look at my life, what can you provide for me? And when I'm making these videos, I'm doing it because I'm being called to do it, and I feel passionate about it. And so it's like, I have all of this amplified energy pouring or exuding from me. And in order to harness that, and this doesn't only apply to my videos, this applies to anything that you watch on the internet. Any YouTube videos, any reels, anything. It's like, your equal energy exchange is the like, the comment, the subscribe, the share, the donation, the, like, even if it's $1, it's like, I got something from that feels really good in my soul. Like, thank you. And as a thank you, I give back. You know, you can also equal energy exchange. You can, videos that have ads, you can watch the whole ad. Even if you mute the phone and you just let the ad play while you're doing something else, that's equal energy exchange, because that ad is then paying the channel that you're watching a profit. And so it's like, you don't even have to make a donation, but you're investing your time as the equal energy exchange. And everything works like that in this universe. Everything is based off of equal energy exchange. And so when you get into relationships with people and you do nothing but take, you know, that relationship will eventually most likely fall apart. But if it doesn't, or when it does, that's when the karma comes to play. Karma is a balancer of the energy. So if, you know, you're here and another person's here and you get into a relationship, or you know, whatever, you know, me and you watching this video, me making the video, you watching the video, we're in relationship. So this can apply to so many things. So it's like you and me. Then, and all you do is, and I'm not really sure which way. I feel like take, and all I do is give. Unbalanced. So when you get out of that relationship, or when you stay in that relationship, whatever, eventually karma comes to try to level it. So, you know, look, you know, you're take. Look how heavy your energy is now. It's so heavy. And all you can think about is take. And but look how dense and heavy your energy is. So it's like, what are you gaining from that? Nothing. And eventually you're going to have to do something. The universe is going to cause and effect, the law of cause and effect, you to dump some of that energy. But will it pertain to this relationship? Possibly not. It's however the universe sees fit that you dump that energy. And so what happens? You know, my first thought, somebody you love dies. To dump energy, you know, something that's really going to hurt you because you've been taking advantage. You're taking. You're going to get an illness to dump, you know, to try to get rid of some of that energy. You're going to start puking all the time. You're going to start being tired all the time because it's trying to balance the energy. You know, it's trying to expel what you are becoming overburdened by, but you don't see it as a burden because you're taking, and so you see it as easy, you know, no energy, you don't have to give anything. But this person is so burdened, you know, I mean, they're lighter, you know, because but it's maybe a bad representation because they're not lighter in a good way. They're lighter because they're being drained of their life force, you know, instead of blooming and creating for themselves and inspiring others around them that aren't in the energy of take. They're draining all of their energy into you if you're on the bottom. I don't know if any of this makes any sense, but to me, it's making sense. I don't know. But be humble, you know, when you look around and you realize, wow, you're giving way more to me than I am. Show humility for it. Like, hey, I see how out of balance this relationship is. Like, what do you need more of from me? And if they say, oh, no, nothing, it's like, okay, well, ask again tomorrow. Because if you feel it, if, whatever situation you're thinking about right now where you're like, wow, I take a lot from that person and I barely give, ask them, say like, hey, is there anything that I can give? And if, their initial reaction will probably be, no, it's fine. Because they're being drained, like they don't even have the energy left within them to explain what they need from you. And so you have to just keep asking every day, hey, and you have to look at them, look at their actions, look at their mannerisms, look at their listen to their words, and try to interpret, what do they really need? What does this person, what could really benefit them that I can give to them, to try to balance the energy. As they give so much to me and I realize I'm not giving much at all. So, yeah, be humble. Always be humble. Even when it's like gritted teeth, it's like you almost just want to take because you resent them in some way, maybe like a parent, or, it's like, well, you've never done anything for me, and so now that you are, I'm going to take whatever I can get kind of energy, or, something along those lines. It's like, be humble. Remember that God is watching. The energy is watching. Whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter. Energy is real. Everything in your body is energy. And you need to find balance. And yeah, sometimes balance is always key, but it's not always the answer for the moment. I made another post about this, I think, where I was saying or video about this, where I was saying sometimes you need to take. Sometimes you're so drained that you need to take because you need to be brought up to level. But I think in those scenarios, the person that you're taking from, or the thing that you're feeding energy from, hopefully has an abundance. I feel like that's why I'm a provider, because I feel very abundant in energy, and sometimes I do get to the point of where I'm drained, but then I know how to replenish it for myself. And I don't always need give back, because sometimes I know the people that I'm helping don't always have the energy for give back. And I have to find it in my own ways, which also, just throwing it out there, I did hear tonight some really good information. So there's something called bentonite clay. It comes in a tub. You can order off Amazon. Sometimes you can find it Marshalls, TJ Maxx. It's called Amazon, something about the Amazon, bentonite clay. It has kind of Aztec-y label on it. I'm sure you can just Google it. But apparently if you put that in your bath water and then you soak in that, it's supposed to really help your energy to block and revive, and block the draining effect and amplify the good effect. So I heard that tonight. It was something new. I use that stuff. I use it on my face. I make it a mask and stuff, but I've never thought about putting it in my tub. So I'm gonna try that this weekend. And yeah, if you just feel energetically off, maybe this is a message for you to try to do that somehow. Also, take some vitamins. Don't forget about your vitamins. selenite, magnesium, glycinate, B12, vitamin D, like D3 or whatever. All of those are just like good, healthy vitamins to take. And yeah, I love you. Be humble. I love you. Be humble. Give. Giving is always important. And I was going to say give more than you receive, which, yes, but then you have to do it with like broad, give more than you take, but do it with humility. Don't be bitter about it. Don't turn into a bitter bitch. Be gracious. Be thankful that you have the energy to give, and always say like thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, universe, thank you, thank you, I love 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 you.